Sonia, what you've come across and the information that's come to you, even as a retiree, you still have close contacts. What have people told you most recently about this weaponization of our government, especially as it relates to January 6th?
Well, Pete, I mean, we get phone calls. I'm getting phone calls every day still. The federal air marshals are disgusted with the details they're being told to deploy on. They don't feel right about surveilling children, surveilling, military veterans who lost their legs in Afghanistan, surveilling grandmothers and grandfathers, unaccompanied minors. This was not the job that we were brought over to do after 9/11. And we have gotten so far off of our original mission, it's almost unrecognizable now what we're doing on a daily basis versus what we should be doing, looking for the real bad guys that are trying to take down aircraft and make those a weapon of mass destruction. But we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. And do you see why it's kind of an unorthodox introduction and approach to this thing? But I happen, to have a very interesting perspective on it. But am I too far off base with saying, I have tremendous respect for law enforcement, always have, I have tremendous respect for a system that needs to protect us and go after the bad guys. Am I anti-government? Absolutely not. I used to work for the government. I was a United States Marine, but things have changed here, and it's within a relatively short period of time where even the good people within the system are now looking at it saying, whoa, hold on a second. This is an abuse of our very powerful tools and authorities, right? Are there more and more people coming forward and wide awake? Do you feel optimistic that they are?
Absolutely. I feel they're optimistic that they are. Just like you talked about in the beginning of the show, when you put a bad guy behind a weapon, they can kill someone. But when you put bad guys and bad girls behind the government, that their intent is not to do what they raise their hand in their oath of office, because, we do take an oath. Every one of us raises our right hand and we're going to pledge that we're going to do the best for our country. But unfortunately, it's just like that bad guy that may have their finger on the trigger to hurt someone. When the government weaponizes the same way, people get hurt, and we cause great harm to those in our country who have freedoms and believe in the First Amendment, and they have a freedom to attend a political rally or go to Washington, D.C., or go visit their grandparents or attend a funeral without getting on a list as a domestic terrorist and then being spied upon for the rest of their life.
Is it not true that when they deem Americans to be domestic terrorists, potentially, right, or extremists, that opens up a whole new set of rules and a game that can be easily abused through surveillance? Are you aware of that aspect of it?
I am very aware of that, and you're absolutely correct. It does open up, and it opens up where there are no rules, really. You think about it, the rules are set in place that are supposed to be based on evidence. You're supposed to have some type of probable cause where you're doing what you're doing, following people, spying on them, watching them. But when you get labeled a domestic terrorist, the rules are kind of out the window. There really are no rules.
And of course, you don't want to give away your sources, but you were tipped off to the fact that there was a designation and a targeting of a bunch of people that were there. I went to D.C. to express my First Amendment rights. I did not intend to insurrect. I brought women, one of whom was my attorney and very good friend and his pregnant wife. We went there to be present and to wave flags and sing. And I was also accepting of the fact that there were people there with Kevlar helmets and vests that were there to protect us from harm from Antifa. I spoke to them. I was okay with that because we were on our own. It wasn't enough law enforcement to protect us, so I was okay with that. But I now understand what I suspected is that we were all declared to be extremist, insurrectionist, terrorists that should ever dare to go to D.C. Is that correct?
That's correct, Pete. If this list was taken from TSA and given to the FBI, and it started around January the 4th through January the 7th. It could be a little sooner or later in January of 2021. But that list was given to the FBI. And then what happened is TSA took that same identical list that they gave to the FBI and they ingested it into a national database for TSA, which then labels you as a domestic terrorist. Or when you get to the airport, they notify the airlines that you're a selectee. Anybody traveling with you is going to be a selectee. And honestly, there's no way you can really get off of this list. I don't know of one person. We're following the same people from January 2021 today that we followed them flights over and over and over. We're watching the same people. I mean, it's almost like you get to know them because you're following them so much, and it doesn't feel good. I mean, this doesn't feel right. Nobody feels like in the FAM service that's doing this, like they're accomplishing the goal of really catching a real, true bad guy.